Would you like to Well, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome everybody here today to our 2024 John Osmun Alumni Professional Achievement Award in Entomology celebration. Yes, it's in 25, but we are celebrating the award for 2024. There's a number of reasons why we've moved the award ceremony to early in 2025. And today we're absolutely delighted to make that award to Dr. Kathy Heinsohn. Before I introduce our award recipient and hand her the stage, I would just like to say a few words. I would like to welcome our special guests, Dr. Turpin, Dr. Yananek, Dr. Miller, Dave Miller, a graduate of the department. Can I say what year, Dave? PhD 75, and former recipient of the Osmun Award in 2001. Do we have any? I don't think we have any other Osmun Award winners.
Okay.
Oh, Barry! Barry, Dr. Barry Pittendry, former. What year did you win? 16. Okay. Anyone else? We should just have everyone stand up. But actually, at the end, if we could get a photograph with our Osmun awardees, that would be great. And to our faculty, staff, and students, thank you very much for joining us today. We're delighted to announce that Dr. Heinsohn, who received her PhD from the department in '98, is the recipient of the 2024 Osmun Alumni Professional Achievement Award in Entomology. It's an award that we make every year. The department makes the award to an alumnus who has demonstrated excellence in their career as an entomologist or in a related field. For those of you who may not be familiar with Dr. Heinsohn, and her work, she enjoys a national and international reputation for leadership in the field of urban and industrial pest management. As I said, she earned a PhD from Purdue in ¡98, working with Dr. Gary Bennett, another important guest, and Dr. John Owens as well, an alumnus of the department and Gary's first PhD student. Is that correct? Okay. Kathy worked on German cockroach control with Gary. I won't read out her thesis title, but it sounds pretty cool to me. And then over 30 years of her career, she's led major efforts in industrial pest management to safeguard human health and reducing impacts on non-target organisms. She's led a number of initiatives around IPM programs, particularly for major US federal agencies. Most notable there are the National Institutes of Health, the US Department of State, and the Library of Congress. She is currently an entomologist working with American Pest Management based in Maryland. She's also a board certified entomologist in two areas, urban and structural and medical and veterinary. If you ever want to teach a class in medical and veterinary entomology, Kathy, let me know. She's a Fulbright scholar. She went to Germany, 84-85. Also received the Distinguished Service Award from ESA in 2014, so Entomological Society of America. And most recently, in 2024, the Crown Leadership Award, which was awarded at the National Pest Management Association meeting. Correct? Is that right? And that award recognised her scholarship, professionalism, educational and other accomplishments in service to the pest management community and the consumers that they serve. She has served on diverse projects over the span of her career. One very interesting effort that she was involved with was responding to the Zika virus problems in Baltimore. So she was involved in that task force and in Washington, and also rat eradication in DC. We're talking about the rodent kind of things, right? Yes, okay.
That's the only one I'm licensed for.
Man, if you could help us with some other pest management problems in the capital, that would be awesome. All right. She's one of the last students who was mentored by Dr. John Osmun. She has contributed also in multiple areas as an alumna of the department. Notable here, helping to plan the department's centennial celebration in 2012. She's been a recurring presenter at the annual Pest Management Conference, and she was also served as a member of our Development Strategic Planning Committee. Also notable was that she was involved in helping to save Entomology Hall. For those of you who don't know, Fenwell Hall used to be Entomology Hall. The department was housed there, and the university in its wisdom decided that
I'm going to speak.
okay, great. There's a test on this later. For students that don't know, this might be something for you to come up to speed on Old Entomology Hall, and we've got something fun to share about Old Entomology Hall as well. Let's see, she has been engaged in leadership roles with no less than 11 professional organisations. One of those is Pi Chi Omega. I'm going to ask the students, who knows about Pi Chi Omega? All right, who's a member? Also a homework exercise. What is Pi Chi Omega and what is its relationship to the department? And I hope that we will have many new members for Pi Chi Omega immediately after this presentation. Also, involvement with the National Pest Management Association, so NPMA. Certified, sort of 7 professional certifications in various areas related to the profession of entomology. A major commitment to the field of urban entomology and more broadly to pest management. Involvement with a wide range of pests. The list was incredible. To the profession and to the training of future entomologists. I just want to share a couple of quotes that came through in Kathy's nomination, which I think everybody will appreciate, help you to understand and give you some insights a little bit more into Kathy's contributions. Here's one quote. Kathy's interests and actions to help motivate and encourage young children in the field of entomology are admirable and encouraging to witness. Wherever she has worked and joined the professional associations, she leaves behind a very positive impact. Here's another. Kathy Heinsohn achieves professionalism to the highest level. Because of her long and distinguished career in urban entomology, Kathy enjoys a reputation of distinction across all facets of the discipline. It is one that certainly reflects the values of that Purdue entomology would hope for in their alums. And then this one's really nice. It was Kathy Heinsohn from 1991 to 1994 that together with John Osmun served as a primary initiator for the 3-year Save Entomology Hall campaign for the plans to have the building raised by the university. I personally witnessed the many hours Kathy dedicated to that important and historic cause. Had it not been for Kathy and John Osmun's work with the Wabash Valley Trust for Historic Preservation over those 3 years, the beautiful and historic Entomology Hall would not be standing today. Kathy comes to mind each time I visit campus and walk by the hall. So that's very nice. Okay, with that introduction, I'm going to hand the floor to Kathy, and she is going to give us a presentation today entitled Opportunities in Pest Management for Graduate Entomology Students, and some of the things that she, from the classroom to the workforce, what she wished she had known earlier. And I'm going to escape out of here and show something. Yeah, I'm going to leave that. Let's just check the laptop. Kathy, is that right? Is that coming up? Yeah. Kathy, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wow, I'm honored and humbled and thrilled to be back here. Every Thursday afternoon we had seminars in this very room, and the students were required to be here. And I remember the Osmun Award winners coming, and as students looking at them and thinking, oh my God, they look so old. And now I am she. So anyway, you too can be up here in about 30 years. So yes, I wanted to speak to you about a couple of things today while I had you as captive audience. And I hope all the students got a business card. If you didn't, Kate has some, I have some up here. When you're ready for a job, give me a call. So we're always hiring in the pest control industry. Yes, first of all, for those of you, oh, do I click it?
I'm gonna,
this,
okay.
Or click at this? Okay.
Yes.
First of all, for those of you who didn't know John Osmun, and that's quite a few of you now, unfortunately, in the room, he was a wonderful man. I'll be drinking a lot of water. Sorry. John was destined to be an entomologist from the age of 2. He had a perambulator. Have you heard that word before? Stroller, basically, baby carriage. And he would reach out and try to grab caterpillars when his brother was nearby. And this one is really good. He was a passionate insect collector. At the age of 13, he learned an important lesson when his killing jar broke when he fell and he passed out on the trail collecting insects. And of course, they have potassium cyanide in it, and at that time. And he suffered persistent headaches, and no one could diagnose it for a while. And then eventually another doctor figured out what had happened. And he proudly carried his acid burns on his legs all his life. And he lived into his mid-90s. John was the first, well, not the first, he was a U.S. Army chief entomologist straight out of school during World War II, stationed at Governor's Island. And that's a picture that Bobby Corrigan sent to me. And then I want you to know that John and I overlapped only in that he was an emeritus professor when I was here as a student. And yet he came into the office every single day. And his office was over in Entomology Hall, now Findler Hall. And we became acquainted. He was very interested in all students, quite an advocate of education. And he befriended us, and so I became a house sitter and a dog sitter for him. And I got to know him and his wife Dottie very well. And later, when Dottie passed, his second wife, Dortha, as well. John joined the faculty as the first professor of urban entomology, the program at Purdue that J.J. Davis was putting together. And John developed that. And then later, he became head of the department. But he really advocated for students, and he advocated for education all his life. And he especially advocated for education and professionalism in the pest management industry. So at the time when John first came to Purdue, pest control folks were called exterminators. Now, that lingo is still used to some extent, but the more educated, more professional folks in the business later became pest control operators, and then pest management professionals, and now we're pretty much public health professionals. So he was a driver of that education and professionalism, trying to make pest control elevated into a real science. Here he is I was honored to present him. I was working at MPMA at the time, and he received the Pinnacle Award for his professionalism at the Purdue Pest Management Conference that year, just shy of his 92nd birthday. And the B&G here, which is sort of the iconic traditional pest control emblem that in the past we always saw technicians carrying, was created in one of his first labs by two GI Bill students, Brim and Gilmore. And then they started the business, B&G, and everyone who was in the pest control business carried one of these. Can you all see okay? Okay. So here's a picture of a group of us on the steps of Entomology Hall, and Bobby Corrigan, John, me, a bunch of people that you might recognize in the pest management industry. John, that's you, right?
Actually, Kat, let me please interject that if you look at this list of names,
Yeah.
many of them are in that picture.
Yeah, a lot of former Osmun
And
Award
John,
winners.
of course, too.
Yeah. So I met John in 1991 when I came here as a graduate student. And he was not only a great teacher, mentor, and friend, but he was a lot of fun. And the back of Entomology Hall had these old-timey fire escape slides. And at Christmas time, we'd have a great big dinner in the lobby of Entomology Hall. And then everyone would slide down the fire escapes on rugs. And John decided to do it, and I was scared to death because the man was like 88 or something at the time, but he wanted to do it just like everyone else. And so I went ahead of him to catch him when he came out, and someone else came behind him to make sure he didn't get stuck. But he also enjoyed riding the Boilermaker Special, big supporter of Purdue athletics, but mostly education. But then saving Entomology Hall. That was a primary passion during the time I knew him. These are t-shirts that we had made, and we're standing here on the steps of Entomology Hall. So it's now called Findler Hall. It doesn't entirely look like it did because it was not handicap accessible. It had these old-timey fire escapes and everything, all that's gone. But here's the picture of my cunt, by the way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. The first faculty meeting that took place in September, I don't know what possessed me, and I got a couple of my friend graduate students to come to the faculty meeting. I figured, well, they're open and they're not closed meetings, we can go. And the dean comes in and announces, to everyone's great surprise, that he's going to tear down the building. Now this is where the flight room was located, where flight testing was done on insects. And John's office, the department office, lots of teaching classrooms in the insectarium were there. And everyone was like mortified. And I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, where history is valued and beautiful spaces are valued. And so for some reason I stood up. The dean didn't know me from Adam. Some of the faculty didn't know me yet. And I said, why would you tear down such a beautiful building? And he was like, who the heck is this person standing up and saying something? And that started the campaign. We made t-shirts, we did letter writing campaigns, we wrote editorials, and held meetings, met with deans and the president. My mom was convinced I'd never graduate because the president and vice president knew my first name, and they all wanted to wreck the building and put up a brand spanking new building with their names on it. But it was truly a beautiful space and just needed to be brought up to ADA standards, basically. So don't ever think you can't do something. And if you speak truth to power and you do it long enough and persevere long enough, things can change. So that's a message to you in these times we have. And it was so exciting. The thing was, and Gary will tell you, and Tom Turpin will tell you, that it probably delayed my graduation by about 2 years or so, or 3. And yet, they were on the committee too. And I learned so much about history, about preservation, about how the National Registry worked, all these sorts of things that I would never have known about. And the building is a sister building to the Chicago Art Institute, and built in the same style, the Beaux-Arts style. And they were going to tear it down. So anyway, here are some of the movers and shakers. Gary and Tom are not pictured there, but John in the midst there. So John hired Gary Bennett, and Bennett hired me to be a grad student. And here we are at a bug bowl years ago, the Indiana Pest Control Association, and Greg Long here is with us from that. Always provided funding for us, and we appreciated that. This was the Insects as Food booth, and we ended up being interviewed by Scott Simon of NPR and People magazine. It was in the same issue as Princess Diana, and so we didn't make the front page. And then, of course, through the years, and I encourage you students to get involved in the Urban Pest Conference, work with Barry and others in the room to be out there, get your name out there, give talks, interact with the vendors and the business people in the industry, get known, have them come to your classes, take you to lunch, and there could be a job out there for you waiting. So, now, when I was here as a student, I'll just briefly mention this, so close to 30 years ago. I worked with German cockroaches and JH mimic, phenoxycarb, and you know that it twists wings of the cockroaches at different doses. And it also affects the turgid glands on the male, and it affects the left phallomere. Actually, it affects all cuticular structures, so courtship breaks down. And so I was up in the flight room in my darkened arena here with my infrared lights, having horny cockroaches court and mate with each other at different doses of phenoxycarb, and then recording and generating ethograms and see where the courtship broke down. And then here I am treating in Gary's lab at the time. And then I also did some scanning electron microscopy, and you could see how the phenoxycarb would break down the cuticular structures. They were more flaccid and not able to hook into the female's corresponding eyelid. So I finally did graduate. Entomology Hall was saved about the same time, and then the administration decided it was their idea all along, and they would change the name though to Findler, which was okay because he was a beloved ag professor. And I left Purdue, and my first job was with Western Pest Services as a regional entomologist. That was in the DMV area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And then after 8 years, I went to the National Pest Management as their technical entomologist for about 5 years. And then I decided I wanted to be back more out in the field, interacting with clients one-on-one. And I went to American Pest. And then they were acquired by Anticimex, a global company, third largest in the world. And that was in 2015. So I've been now at American Pest for almost 14 years. So that's a little bit about Osmun, that's a little bit about me, so that you know. But I really wanted this opportunity to talk to you as students and as faculty about things that you might want to consider when your students or yourself, you're headed to an industry position, okay? The thing I can tell you about the pest management industry is, even with all the acquisitions and mergers going on, there are tons of firms out there, and in surveys done, a good number of the respondents would like to have more good employees. They're always looking for employees. And they hire a lot of technicians. And these technicians need to be trained. And that's where the entomologist comes in. This is a little bit dated number in annual billing. Anticimex, just in my company, American Pest, is now over 70 million. So there is money to be made. Is the job market steady? Definitely. People are always going to want someone to get rid of their pest. So you have job security. And there are predictions that job growth will continue about 7% faster than all other occupations into 2033 and beyond. So it's stable, lots of prospects for advancement, especially if you go to a larger company that is global. You could end up working almost anywhere in the world. Now these are dated surveys, and I talked to the technical people at NPMA, and I said, you all really need to update this. The last one they did, the wage benefit survey, was back in 2010, so this is definitely dated. But they did not survey the entomologist. They surveyed sales technicians, service managers, both branch and regional. So I had to query my own friends as entomologists who work at companies and sort of get some ideas for what they're making out there and how they're compensated with benefits and wages. What I want you students to do is to do your homework when you go to negotiate a job with someone. Know what you're worth, and after grad school, any amount of money looks good. And I remember Gary, when he heard what Western wanted to offer me the first time, he said, and he said, you need to ask for more. And I was glad that he advised me that way. And then Western did jump up to more. So you need to also consider that the package isn't just your salary, okay? It's your benefits, and you'll want to compare those. You usually get a company car. And with the company car, depending on the company, you may or may not contribute monthly to the gas and mileage. You usually don't have to pay anything toward the maintenance or registration property taxes. And most companies will let you use the car for errands if they're de minimis. So again, consider the whole package. You'll get bonuses if your area does well. If you have certifications such as the BCE or the ACE, and if you don't know what that is, that's a board certified entomologist certification, or an associate certified entomologist certification through ESA. And there's something for students called the BCE intern that you can be working on as a grad student, and it will give you a jump before you enter the job market and start working toward a BCE. But a lot of accounts that I work with require that a BCE be involved on the contract, or a PhD or a master's entomologist. So these are all things you need to think about. Travels to meetings, whether or not you can publish, whether or not you can patent, you know, that sort of thing. Can you do limited research? Will your name be first author? All of these things. And if they will pay for your dues for professional societies like ESA, NPMA, Pi Chi Omega, and Sigma Xi, the research society. And American Pest does all these things for me. Don't cave in on negotiating. Women and minorities are very often guilty of doing that. I mean, again, coming out of grad school, any dollar signs look good, and you want to be polite, and you're so excited to get a job, but stand your ground, you're worth it, and negotiate. So know what you're worth, do some research, and demand it. More and more pest companies are hiring entomologists, even the small mom and pop firms. There are some things to think about if you go with a small firm versus a large one. Large ones will have technical departments, so you'll have other entomologists to collaborate with, either regionally, corporately, or at the branch level. If you go to a smaller mom and pop type of firm, you may be the only one there, and in some ways that's kind of cool because you can chart your own path. But you'll probably be relying more on extension agents if you have questions, or calling universities and that sort of thing, because you won't have the team that you would have at a larger organization. So again, a lot of contracts require that you have an entomologist, usually a postgraduate, so master's or PhD level entomologist on there. A lot of animal research facilities, various food plants, like Nestle, for instance, pharmacies, breweries like Anheuser-Busch. All of these places have to have entomologists on the contracts usually to put an IPM plan together and solve any issues. Otherwise, the plant shuts down and millions of dollars can be lost. And a lot of companies, once they've had a good experience with, say, an intern as an entomologist, then want to pursue having entomologists again. Now, in business, perception is reality. Whether that's fair or not doesn't matter. But there is a perceived value to clients if you have an entomologist on board. And there is also perception, and I feel it's true, is that you're more educated and more professional. And so you have the edge in this tight marketplace, and you can get some tough accounts that other companies might not be able to get. So most of the technicians are going to be much less educated than you are. They usually have to have a high school degree or a GED equivalent, and You'll be teaching technicians, sales, managers, but to be promoted, technicians would have to get certifications and experience or even a college degree, even an associate's degree. And so, again, education equals professionalism. And so you see the evolution from exterminators to pest control to public health professionals. And you can become a trainer, a technical manager, a corporate entomologist, staff regional entomologist, technical director. If you want to go into management, if you're a good people person and you have some management skill, and there are courses along the way that you can take, you can become a service manager. If you're good in sales, you might want to venture that direction too. And a lot of entomologists end up as managers of a whole branch. So there will always be the need for entomologists because of federal and state EPA guidelines and laws requiring that pest control workers be state licensed to apply pesticides. And FIFRA dictates licensing and training on a regular basis. And so, like this time of year when it's a little bit quieter, we're all doing our training. That's why all the conferences are held in January and February typically. And then termite season hits in March. So you would choose, if you become an entomologist in a company, you would choose the products, pick the AIs, the active ingredients. You would write the treatment protocols for the various pests. You would solve difficult pest problems that the technician and service managers weren't able to solve, or at least consult on them. You would do QCs, or quality control inspections, for bigger clients. And you're in charge of safety and safety protocols. And your whole role is in reducing overall liability for the company, because that's where companies pay a lot of money, is for misapplications or accidents or incidents. So it's your role to help reduce all of that. So most of this I mentioned, but then there's specialized programs and protocols that you might get involved in. IPM in schools or hospitals, green programs, bed bug treatment protocols and guidelines. Whatever comes up that is needed, you get to chart that path and do that protocol. So what's in it for you? Nice starting salary, travel, the car, a bonus usually, if your company does well, the big name accounts, problem-solving challenges. If you like to solve a pest problem that no one else has been able to solve for a couple of months or a couple of weeks, you walk in and solve it right away. That gives you satisfaction of a job well done. But at the same time, you're on the front line, because you'll deal with upset customers that were upset with the technicians perhaps, or upset with the branch manager. And so your role is to come in and be diplomatic and help smooth that all out and solve the problem. And it invariably happens that the technician has told the customer billions of times the same thing that's going to come out of your mouth. Because you're Dr. X with a letter behind your name, they listen to you and they haven't listened to the technician, and that's frustrating to technicians. So you have to learn how to handle all of that. So analytical skills are important, diplomacy is important, people and listening skills are important. So there's a real difficulty in matching expectations of the student at whatever level they're at, because we hire students at all levels, bachelor's, master's, and PhD, and matching their expectations with that of the employer. Again, at a smaller operation, you can sort of chart your path if they haven't had an entomologist before, and that's kind of fun. But it can present some roadblocks too. It's nice to be able to work with a team. Almost all companies, regardless of small or large that you might go to, is going to have you, and expect this, ride with a technician or be a technician for a set amount of time. And there's real value in this. And you might not want to do it initially. You think, I just got out of my PhD program and I'm the new Dr. X, why should I have to go ride a technician route? But unless you've walked in these people's shoes and see what they're up against and their constraints, you don't know how to train and teach them. And so you need to experience that yourself. So here was my mentor. He's now passed on, but Ernest Overton. I rode with him for a good 8 months or so, and I learned so much that I had not learned in the books, riding with him. Mostly about some people skills and how to layer that with pest problem skills, so pest problem solving skills. And here we are at one of our accounts at the time, the Washington Redskins playing field, and they were a client of ours. We kept them pest free, and he was a lot of fun. So the difficulty really lies in communicating the proper expectations in your interview and get it in writing. How long will I be on a technician's route? Can I do company training during this time? Can I attend any conferences? How will I keep up my licenses and certifications or obtain them in the first place? And again, anticipate the following. You may be reporting to someone less educated than yourself. You may drive a branded company car. You may wear a uniform, and yet that helps you not having to buy clothes all the time. You may be on a time clock for a while. You may have a camera in your car, or something that monitors your driving. And I know that seems like a huge infringement, and I used to think, oh, that's horrible. You know, it's like Big Brother watching me all the time. And yet, it really reduces liability, because car accidents are our #1 problem. And you forget it's there, and truth be told, unless there's an incident, the managers don't look at it typically. There's just too many fleet vehicles to worry about it. And if you're doing the right thing, you shouldn't have to be worried about it anyway. And yes, you may have to work after hours. You may have to work on weekends. And you may get a company credit card and a budget. For a while, I was driving this little mini vehicle, Mini Cooper. So students usually come with lots of book knowledge and not the practical business savvy that has to be learned along the way. Knowing about profit loss sheets and statements, realizing that it's a profit-driven business, so time is money, budgets, sales, cost of materials, and then this one used to really get me is, why aren't we using pesticides that we know work if they're the best for whatever reason, but they were the most expensive. And you have to think about the bottom line. So then you have to come up with other ways of solving issues. So another thing that I notice students have some difficulty with is managing time efficiently. And I remember going into my first boss's office about a year after being there and saying, there's so much to juggle. How do we do it all? I mean, in grad school, you may not realize it, and you have one focus, kind of, your project that you're working on, and you're dedicating your whole time and energy to that project. And then you get out into this arena, and suddenly things are coming at you left and right. And so you need to know how to manage time, how to prioritize, how to organize. And sometimes if you're in a lab for a long time, you don't develop those people skills and people management skills that are good for team environments like in a business. And unfortunately, I have dealt with some students who newly minted PhDs came in thinking they were better than the technicians who had 30 or 40 years experience. So, all that has to be considered. The employer, on the other hand, is coming from the angle of, okay, upper management at HQ has told me this guy is really going to be good for me, or this gal, and make my life so much easier. But it's a huge investment for this manager to bring you up to speed on things, and you're not going to be productive to him or her for a good year or more. And again, everything's about the bottom line. So they're looking at the cost. Okay, I've got to put this investment in this person, buy their licenses, send them to a conference, continuing education, all this stuff. But they're probably not going to really benefit my branch for a good 6 months to a year or more. So, what I wish departments of entomology could do somehow, weave into their curricula, is, I know there are some internships currently and field work with local PMPs. That's definitely a good ongoing thing. But requires some med-vet entomology courses, not just urban pest management or ag pest management. Requires some business type or management courses to give you a little business acumen, so that you're not walking in totally blind. Some negotiating skills coursework, especially for those of us who were raised to be really polite and not question authority necessarily. It's hard to stand your ground and demand more when you know you're worth it, but you need to do it. People skills coursework, practice interviews, and provisioning of mentors to help as you transition into the workforce. And I really encourage people to look at ESA's website and become a BCE intern as a student. That gives you a huge jump and shortens the time to become a BCE. These are some helpful hints for the students. There's lots of things you can be doing. But the conference in January is a huge place for you to be interacting with people in the industry, getting business cards, well, electronically changing business cards now, and doing classes, giving classes, seeking out mentors at companies. I'm happy to talk to any of you. Take my card, email, text me, call me, whatever. And I'm happy to point you in directions in the industry you might be interested in. Read and write articles in industry trade magazines. We used to do that all the time for PCT and for PMP magazines. And you can make a little extra side money on the side. I know it's like $50, but that's something, you know, when you're a student. So definitely read those magazines too to see what the trends are and what's around the corner for what they're looking for. LEED, green, and organic only will increase the demand for pest management. Population growth will continue to do so. Climate change, public health with new invasives, new diseases. That's where the med vet will come in and assist you. And people have more disposable income, or did. I don't know if they do now with eggs, but there tend to be more people, dual income households that will hire pest management professionals to solve the pest problems. So it's going to only increase. I hope this top one continues. Tougher regulations, making us have to think outside of the box. For instance, at NIH, the 2 contracts that I'm in charge of, we seldom use pesticides. We build the pest out. We exclude them, whatever that involves. Of course, population shifts will cause more pest-prone areas to increase too. So the market is very bright for you. There are jobs out there. There used to be a joke when I was a student here, how can you tell a biologist from an entomologist? And the answer was the entomologist has a job. So, and typically that remains the case. Just a few little interesting things I've been involved in to entice you. This was a group that I got to take a group of Copasan technical committee members to go meet with USDA to establish food safety protocols for food plants. So that was pretty exciting. I got to go to Tunisia and teach at the US Embassy there because US embassies are under EPA guidelines. And so they bring all the facility managers from across the world to meet in certain embassies and hold a class, an IPM class. They're dealing with cockroaches, with ants, with rodents, same things we deal with, but they need to be brought up to speed on proper guidelines. So here was the Tunisian ambassador's residence, and there were odorous house ants. He also had subterranean termites. So this was interesting and continues to happen each July 19th or so. On the top of the Capitol Dome, they give tours in Washington, and they had people being scared that they were going to be stung. And so they had closed down the tours, and they called us, and we had to arrange to go to the Capitol at 6 a.m. for exactly 30 minutes so that the sharpshooters on top of the White House wouldn't shoot us. And we went around and inspected, and they were only drone bees sitting up there, waiting for virgin females to fly by to be mated. And there's huge bumblebee colonies in the grounds of the Capitol, and yeah, this had shut them down, and I said, no, you don't need to worry about this. They're all males, they don't sting, and then they could reopen the tours. This, at the State Department, one of our former female secretaries of state had been given a gift, and unfortunately it was full of Indian meal moths. So this is a certain house at Pennsylvania Avenue that had a rodent issue. Occasionally we get called in to do wildlife. Unfortunately, I had to take this from the brochure so it doesn't show, I mean, I couldn't get rid of the print there, but this was Tracker. He's now passed on over the Rainbow Bridge, but he was the best bug dog ever. And we used him at NIH on the pediatric wings and in the oncology wings, and he was well received, his little tail wagging all the time, but he could sniff out one egg, or one nymph, or one adult. I've never seen a creature be that accurate, and it would have taken me and my technicians, several minutes or longer, whereas he would just sit to alert the minute he smelled them. So, yeah, he was very valuable. So anyway, I find being a pest management professional is a great career for an entomologist. And you do get to protect the public health, the environment, and structures. And when you layer all of those things, as well as the clients and the pest, no 2 days are alike. Every day's interesting. You continue to learn. I've been in it a long time now, and every day you learn something. So thanks for your attention, and I would encourage you to check out ESA's website for their career center area and the BCE intern. NPMApestworld.org also might have some things for you. And there's my partner Walt and my puppy Franz, the two supporters in my life. Any questions, especially from students? Oh, Larry.
This is a small one, but I'm curious. You showed a slide that demonstrated movements to reduce pesticides, and you used several acronyms, and one of them was LEED,
Oh my gosh.
and I don't know what that is.
Oh gosh, and now it escapes me while I'm up here in the spotlight.
Okay.
Help me
I'm
out.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what's the acronym?
LEED. What's the acronym?
I'm sorry.
LEED.
The lead, LED.
Oh,
It's the energy efficiency and
yeah.
they're building, at least in the DC area, all the buildings have to be LEED certified. And you get like silver or gold or
Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design.
Thank you.
What was it?
Thank you.
What was it?
Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design.
Uh-huh.
Right, so the buildings that have like solar panels and more glass so you don't have to use lighting and things like that.
Okay.
But,
I've just never seen that before.
oh really? Okay, yeah, it's really big in my area. Yeah. Yes?
Should students who are interested in going into being a pest management professional already get pesticide training for their state prior to?
That wouldn't be a bad thing because it's usually reciprocal with other states. So wherever you move to take a job, you can usually just get reciprocity. And then you don't have to resit the exam.
Thank you for a fabulous talk.
Oh, well, I enjoyed it, and I thank you for coming to lunch. The ones of you who could make it, we had a great discussion. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of an instructional development person, but do you recommend a class in instructional development since you're training so many people? How to develop instruction? Yeah.
I took a couple of those courses here at Purdue myself, just on my own, through the education department. And they certainly had to help. And yes, if you're going to be a trainer or teacher or, I mean, whether you stay in academia, go to industry, government, wherever, at some point you're going to be training. So that's not a bad thing. Good point. Yes.
Wonderful presentation. You mentioned, I like the suggestion you said for students to do their homework and figure out what they're worth. But with changing markets and changing politics and the diverse companies out there, how do you recommend going about determining your worth, especially in a climate now where a lot of students are kind of encouraged to take the job you can get? Where would one start to look for that information?
As you get close to that time, why don't we talk?
Yeah.
And I can kind of peruse, I mean, depending on the area you're interested in. And certainly your faculty members here can help too. And like at the conference in January, there will be people, see if you can go to lunch with a vendor or with a owner and just discuss those sorts of things like, what's sort of the going rate these days for...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Using the dog to locate bed bugs, was that one individual just exceptionally good, or is that like a potentially broadly applicable strategy?
That has been going on for some time now, and there are bedbug dog training academies, and there are dogs that are better than others. Tracker's half-brother failed out of bedbug school. He was too affectionate and wanted to be petted and love on people, so he went on to be a therapy dog. Yeah.
Different line of work.
Yep. But and different breeds of dogs have been used. They usually now go to a humane society and try to train younger dogs. There's some debate out there now, how good are dogs versus humans, but typically Tracker was in the 90th percentile. I mean, really, and much better than my eyes and my technician's eyes. Yeah, he was spot on. He didn't miss. Yeah.
Kathy, I even learned a couple of things about John Osmun's, background and his life and some of the things that you talked about in your first slide or two. But just a point of history, you mentioned that you like or you hope that there's even more regulation and tighter requirements for training and education and so forth in the industry. John Osmun was department head for a number of years, and then he went on loan to EPA.
That's right.
At the time when FIFRA was amended, and they had the whole program about registration of applicators, and then the parts of that apply to the urban pest management industry, in particular in the different subcategories. He went on loan to EPA for a couple of years to kind of create all that. And
I know, and he met a lot of resistance in the pest control
he came back just kind of embittered about, or not embittered, that's a little harsh, but he had it up to here with just the bureaucracy and the politics and stuff. And I think he had accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. But he did it out of that same spirit, but also because he thought it would be good for the pest control industry.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely why he did it.
Professionalism, education, and these people who want to, kind of hold back and fight the regulations and stuff, they don't realize, that they start to lean on baits or sprays or something, and they promote resistance. And if you don't think outside the box, then you can't move the industry forward.
Right.
And it's been a real challenge, interesting challenge for me at NIH to, not have to use pesticides pretty much at all and try to solve the pest problem. And it can be really difficult.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you meet resistance, and then you have people in their own offices bringing in decon and stuff, and you have to, you'll be blamed for that because it's a rodenticide over the counter. But yeah, it's as you know.
Yes.
John worked at SC Johnson Wax.
Yeah, just a comment if I can. Many people in this room knew John Osmun.
Yes.
He's a wonderful guy, and he's very influential in my life. But he said, let's educate rather than regulate. And that was his theory when he went into EPA back in 1970. Let's educate rather than regulate. And then the other thing he said is, and we all probably know things that he's said before, it goes with me, I think about him all the time, is he said that there should be a statue of Rachel Carson in front of every entomology program or university in the United States. And we have one.
Right, and I have yet to see that, and I want to see it.
We'll take you there.
Okay. Yes. Other questions? Mike, did you have another question? Okay.
Well, if you've got questions for Kathy, I'm sure she'd love to hear from you afterwards, and she's got some cards here at the front. You can grab her contact details. Kathy, I want to thank you so much for your amazing presentation and your insight into the industry and where you think it's headed, as well as the opportunities that are out there for people that are interested and prepared, and how to prepare for that. Your thoughts and ideas for the department, which I heard.
I saw you taking some notes.
They're all in there. I will sit next to you at the fish fry tomorrow, so we'll explore some of those ideas. This is an interesting thing to tell you too. Your efforts and those of others in saving entomology whole may have many important repercussions, and one perhaps you hadn't realised, or let's see if this is realised. We never know what's happening with Smith Hall, but there are some plans afoot that one day call for us to move back to entomology Hall. So, wouldn't that be nice? The fire escapes are not there. But before I present your award, I have a little treat. It's not the award. We'll see if we can make this work.
She's going to show you. Oh, I see.
It's, we'll have a slide presentation. Oh, I logged out. Hold on, just deal with the technicalities here.
Gary, did you contribute to this?
No, it wasn't Gary.
Okay.
Somebody else.
Oh, Turpin.
That's not even Turpin.
Oh, that was hilarious.
All right, there's no sound. This is a
There's no
combination.
sound?
No, this is from the archives, Kathy.
Yes.
This is from John Obermeyer. So without sound, we'll even let you narrate.
So I'm interviewing my compatriot there. Oh, that is one.
20 bucks if you can spot Barry Pinder in there.
Barry, you might be in there.
There you are, Larry.
At the very end.
Where's Barry?
So we would
Yeah.
eat the Christmas. Oh, there are my. There's the Christmas. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's So now everybody knows the fire escapes that we all hear about, and I guess I would have to say that I had some pictures as well, the same ones as you did, and that one as well. So
That's a favorite.
there's no doubt about it. I agree. Sometimes administrators don't have great ideas. Sometimes it just makes life not quite so much fun. But anyway. One day maybe we'll be back. Kathy, I would like to, well, it gives me great pleasure to back. Sent. Da, 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 da. Welcome back to Etymology. Oh.
You know, I'm going to take a different picture after this, okay?
Okay, no problem.
It's kind of a rough.
Congratulations on behalf of the department, the 2024 Osmun Award winner.
Thank you for the wonderful welcome back.
And this is also probably important.
Thank you, I didn't even know about that.
A couple, just before we close out, sorry, just one more, sorry. I'd like to get my glasses. I just want to, work this. So I'd like to thank the members of the Osmun Selection Committee. So it was chaired by Dr. Ian Kaplan this year, and the members are Maya Gondalekar, Paul Kammer, who's a graduate of the department, MS 74, PhD 85, Emily Justice, Julie Wooby, and Mardell Lawton. I also want to thank the main office, Mardell and Sabrina and others for helping with the event today. And I have one other exciting piece of news to say that today the department is very, very grateful to have received a very generous gift from Dave Miller and family, and we very much appreciate that, and that will be incredible. To honor Kathy and Dr. Osmond, particularly the insights into Dr. Osmond and his contributions and leadership of the department, and to everybody for joining us and contributing and celebrating and honoring Kathy, and the department really appreciate it, so thank you so much. And please stay, enjoy the food and the refreshments, mingle, get to meet Dr. Heinsohn if you haven't already, and others who are here visiting us, get to meet some of our alumni and friends of the department. And I'm going to ask the Osmun Award winners, if you would please, past recipients and today's recipient, if you would please come forward for a photograph.